Okay, today we're going to change the rear differentials, or just the rear, wheel seal on a 1992 Toyota Hilux, which is the same as a Toyota pickup truck. And when the rear seal leaks, you get differential fluid, which is really stinky, coming out the seal and running down the tire like this. It's a pretty easy job. So this is one of my, I'm just going to try experimenting and seeing how to put this on YouTube. So I'm going to try this easy job. Okay, here's how it works. First, you jack the truck up. I always make sure you put blocks of wood underneath the truck itself. You don't ever rely on just the jack. I don't know if you can see that. I hope you can. But there's the jack, plus there's wood. So then if the jack fails, the wood will support the truck. Okay, so this is what we do. Make sure I got that right. Yep. There, how's that? Okay, so I have just taken the wheel lug nuts off. Luckily I'm in an indoor heated garage. I just built my house 4 years ago. Pardon me, oops. And the heated garage was an absolute necessity. I spent too much time working outside in the snow and the gravel and the cold to do that anymore. Okay, tires off. You can see where the crap is coming out around the wheel here. I'm going to take the emergency brake off, so make sure you block the wheel so the truck can't roll. And Toyota has some jacking holes here. You screw some nuts in, it pulls the wheel cylinder off for you. You might want to also select neutral. Okay, it's in neutral. Okay, so Toyota has jacking holes. There's a threaded hole here, and there's a threaded hole here. And that's to help get this off, because sometimes it's almost impossible to get off. So this makes your life way easier. Make sure to do them evenly, or it won't come off. It may get stuck on the brake drum, brake shoes, I mean. Let me try this and see if it comes off or not. It doesn't appear to be coming off. So I'm not going to force it. Did you hear that click? That was the brake shoes. Just make sure it stays free of the brake shoe. You got to work these bolts back and forth. Otherwise you'll bend or break something on the inside. Okay, I'm tightening again. Try to pull it a bit more this time. And if you get too much resistance, stop and back up. Oh, hear that click? That's the brake shoes. They're being pulled against their springs, and then they're releasing and pulling back onto their seat. So now it's really easy to turn these bolts. And I'm almost out of thread on the bolts, but the drum is also almost all the way off. Okay, so I think that's probably good. You can see there's a gap here now. This gap here that wasn't here before. You might have to work these a bit to still get them off. Oh, there's another click. So the brake shoes are relaxing back to where they belong. When I back these nuts off, the drum is slowly coming off. It is a bit of a challenge sometimes. Don't force it. Don't put too much pressure on these bolts. If it's not coming off, back them off, bang the drum, move it, make sure it's free of the shoes, and start to tighten a bit more again. It'll eventually come off. Take your time. If you force it with these bolts, you'll destroy the brake shoes on the inside, and then you've got a real mess on your hands. I'll show you why this is happening in a minute. Why this happens, there's a ridge here that develops. Even if I don't have much of a ridge, right along here, because the brake shoes wear the inside of the drum, and they don't wear this little ridge on the outside, so the ridge catches as it gets pulled off here. Even if that's not happening, if your brake adjuster is working correctly and the brakes are fairly tight to this surface, they'll have to come off exactly straight or they'll bind. Okay, so the drum is off. I'll take all that outside and clean it with spray clean, brake clean later to get all the old differential fluid off there. Now you're left with this to deal with. So the first thing you can do is take this cable off. I have to get a rag. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is take off this emergency brake cable connector here. It's not a big deal, it's not hard, but occasionally you'll find the pin, just one second, the pin that holds everything together could be seized from rust. Don't lose this little locking pin. They're impossible. You can use a piece of wire, I suppose, but so this pin now may be rusted into its spot. I can come closer here. One sec. Does that help? This pin here can get jammed. Okay, so this pin came out. It's a bit rusty, you can see, but a little persuasion. Be careful, don't mushroom the end of it. There's a little wavy washer that goes in here to take up any vibrating and slack, so be sure not to lose that. I put this pin wavy washer all together so I don't lose the pieces. So I put them all three parts together. Okay, the next thing we want to do, which is a bit of a pain, is remove the brake line and not have a whole bunch of brake fluid leaking all over the place. Okay, so here we are. Get yourself some of these little plugs. Canadian Tire sells them, other automotive shops sell them. This one's missing. I've got 3 left out of the total of 7 that were here, but this one will work. You're going to plug off the brake line so it doesn't leak brake fluid everywhere. When you put your wrench on here, you should, if it hasn't been off in the last couple of years, you should spray it ahead of time with some penetrant. And you should also use, but this one has been off a couple of years ago, so it's not bad. You should also use a pipe wrench, not a pipe wrench, but a wrench that's designed to, there's a special wrench you can get. Anyways, that will not strip. If these things strip, you're in big trouble. So the idea is to spill as little brake fluid as possible and not get any dirt in the system while you're doing this. So I take my plug, I get it ready, I take this off. Try to. And of course it's half seized up also. These parts get subjected to salt and mud, etc. Dirt, salt, mud, whatever. Okay, so we got it loose. And if you just press inward, just maintain a bit of a seal, and work this back and forth a bit. So when you're ready, so you can see what I'm doing, just work this, make sure it's smooth and not going to jam. Okay, slide it back out of the way, pop this out. Don't try to bend the brake line. As a matter of fact, leave it in there for now. I got a better idea. Okay, break it loose, that's all. Don't try to seal it for now, because you'll have to bend the brake line. Mine is a solid metal brake line with no rubber flex parts to it. So we're going to take it off later. It's loose, it's free, it's ready to come off. I've tightened it up just enough to stop any leakage for now. We're going to take out the 4 backing bolts. When I pull the axle shaft and everything ahead, I'll then block it at that time. Okay, so there's 4 bolts here that I've lubed up and loosened off. That one over there, and then there's another 4th one down there. So all 4 of these bolts are going to have to come off, and when I get them off, I'll show you how to pull this off. It's quite easy. Oops. Okay, the 4 nuts are off. There they are. If when you're taking them off, they start to bind up because of the dirt, the dust, and rust, etc., back them all the way back on tight again. Take them off as far as they go to get tight. Back them all the way back on tight again. Back and forth, back and forth. Keep cleaning the threads of all the junk. Don't just pull them. Keep forcing them off, or if they bind and gall up the threads, you'll have to spend some time replacing those nuts and bolts or rethreading everything. You don't want to do that. Okay, it's ready to slide off. So now I'm going to take that brake line off that I was talking about before. So I am, whoops. Hope you can see. Okay, I've got the brake line loose. I'm going to take my rubber plug here. I'm going to pull this ahead just enough, just like that. I'm going to plug off my brake line. Brake line is plugged. This will now slide right out. There's no interior locking C-clip like some of the old domestic vehicles had, not on the Toyotas. This whole piece slides out and brings the axle shaft with it. And dump all the brake cylinder stuff out. So this was up. This is the brake cylinder here. This is the brake cylinder here. If you let it rotate the heavy side down, it'll drain out. So keep that up. Slide the axle shaft out all the way and stand it up. And that's it for that part. Now you can change the seal. It's quite easy. 1 second. Okay, so now we are ready to pull out the old seal. Put my light back. Let's get it together. Just take a big screwdriver, pry it out, just like that. There's the old seal. The rubber's kind of shot on it. See the old seal? This is the new seal. It's a Beck Arnley. My particular part number for this Toyota is 052-2086. If anybody else is doing a Toyota Hilux or a Toyota pickup. Quick comparison says they're the same seal. I've already cleaned this surface. You might want to clean it again if you want. Oops. That's probably not doing very much anyway. Be better if it stay. Make sure there's no junk in there. Get yourself a soft-faced, I knew that was going to fall off again. Soft-faced rubber mallet. Okay, so get yourself a soft-faced rubber mallet. Install the seal. If you haven't installed the seal before, I don't know if you have or not. The trick is to do it evenly and not deform or break the seal, or damage or bend the seal. So get it as even. Okay, so sometimes it might be useful to get a flat piece of wood, like so, rather than trying to go side for edge, for edge, for edge here. Because there, just put it flat on here. Sometimes. This is always a pain in the butt. Put a bit of grease, a bit of differential fluid around this edge to help it slide in. Make sure it's clean. Try this again. Not having much luck here. If it goes in too far on one side and too far out, it will never go. It has to go just pretty much evenly. And that's not working so good. It is a pain in the butt. Put a nice clean paper towels every time it falls, it doesn't get dirtier. Here, grinding with dust. Try it again. Okay, one more time. There, okay, I felt it start. This is deeper than this side. There. Look for the, there we go. Now find the part that's sticking out the most over here. And just work your way around. Okay, now you may want to take your flat piece and just make sure it's flat all the way across, which it is. Okay, there's a seal here, a rubber seal. I'll just show you. Right here. Whoops, I don't want to pull it off. And I can pull it off because I want to clean it. And it's supposed to keep any water out from getting into the bearing that is here. There's a bearing here. And that seal has a chamfered edge right here. You can see the chamfered edge here. This seal sits on that chamfered edge. I should have gotten 2 new seals for that, and I didn't. So hopefully it won't create a problem. So I'm going to clean this up. Okay, I decided to put a little bit of silicone on this rather than just put it on with, because the seal is a bit worn. So I'll use blue silicone just because I happen to have some handy. Okay, so I've got the seal in its place on a clean surface with a little bit of blue silicone underneath it. I put a bit of blue silicone over top. When I put this axle shaft back in, it will squeeze and be all fine. So you might want to take some differential fluid and just coat the inside of this seal here. So it's important to when you put the axle back in on top of the new seal, don't drag it across the seal, obviously, right? So okay, brake cylinder facing up. That's it. We're done. We're just going to put it back together. So brake cylinder facing up. I've already cleaned the mating seat for this outer seal. Brake cylinder is facing up. All right, go in. And don't allow the weight to ride on the new seal if you can help it. Forget about that light. Alright, when you get to this point, try not to wreck the new seal. But you're gonna have to cantilever everything across to get there. Okay, so now and just turn this a little bit because that'll align the splines in with the axle. Okay, so when you get to this point, you want to line up the brake line fitting with the hole. Take your rubber cap off. There's going to be a bit of leakage while you do this. Line up your hole and push. And of course nothing happens. Put your cap back on. All you're doing right now is draining the reservoir. Oh, make sure the reason nothing went there is because the 4 holes weren't lined up. So line up your 4 holes first. Take the rubber cap off the brake line again. Line it up with its spot and push. Okay, and now just tighten up your brake line to stop any leakage. It's a number 10 wrench in this case. I wouldn't tighten it up completely for now. I would just snug it. Do not, under any circumstances, cross thread this thread. You'll have a nightmare on your hands. Not that you will. It would be pretty hard to do that. Okay, when it comes up snug, just leave it. Make sure your 4 bolts are good and seated, or your 4 studs. Take the 4 bolts, reinstall them. Okay, and now you get the view from the back here. So we have the brake line snug. We have this bolt snug, bottom bolt. So the 4 bolts are snug, the brake line is snug. This is not attached yet. There's only the 4 things. 4 bolts, 1 brake line, 1 emergency brake cable. That's it. Okay, so we're going to tighten up the 4 bolts. And it's important, of course, that these are snug to the manufacturer's specifications, which are about that tight. You have to make sure you do it correctly. If your wheel falls off, I'm not responsible. This is all that holds your wheel, your rear axle, and your wheel onto the truck, are these 4 bolts. You might want to use Loctite on them. I don't know what's recommended in the book. I haven't looked. However, I've done this job. This is my 4th Toyota truck, and this is about my 6th time doing this job. Those 4 main bolts are tight. Now I'm going to snug up the brake line fitting. So just check your brake line below here. I don't know if you can see anything down there, probably not, where it runs this way. Make sure it's not going to rub on any steel and vibrate and cause a hole. So when it tightens, it may tend to want to turn sideways a bit. Just hold it in free air, make sure it's clear, and snug it up. Not overly tight, doesn't take much to seal those fittings. Okay, so you got the 4 bolts, you got the brake line. The last thing is this part here, which was our wavy washer pin and lock pin. It's not quite the last part. We still have to bleed the brake system now. Put your wavy washer in between the, hold on here. your wavy washer goes in between this part and this part to take up any rattling slack. Slide it through. Whoops, catch your glove. Your locking pin goes through. Make sure it's in the lock position. That's it. That's tight. That's tight. Those four are tight. Now we need to bleed the brake system, and we're done. Okay, off camera I bled the brake system. The way you bleed the brake system is you have an assistant, somebody help you. They press the brake pedal to the floor. At the same time you take this upper air fitting here and you loosen it off while they're pressing on the brake pedal. And fluid and air will squirt out here. When they have the brake pedal to the floor, you tell them to hold it there and you tighten this up. Okay, before you do any bleeding of the brake system, it's important to have the brake drum back on. If you don't, and somebody presses the brake pedal, your cylinder pistons are going to push outwards till they fall out of their housing, and the whole thing's going to fall apart and it'd be a gigantic mess. So don't do that. So make sure you replace the brake drum first, and make sure you take a can of brake clean and spray it all the goo and all the differential fluid out of it first. Okay, my assistant is helping me out. It's a snow brush propped against the seat, pushing the brake pedal down. So with that in place, okay, I have that in place and I have some pressure on the pedal. So with the pressure on the pedal, I'm going to release any air that may have gotten into the system. So the snow brush is pushing pressure down. I'm going to put and I'll open this up. And straight brake fluid comes out, close it up. So the pressure on the pedal is relaxed right now. I'll go in with that closed. I'll go release the pressure and pump it to reapply the pressure. Okay, and I'll do that one more time. See if any air bubbles come out. Brake pedal feels hard. Doesn't feel soft and squishy. And I do it again. No air bubbles come out. Tighten that back up. There's a nice rubber cap that goes on that, which I don't have anymore. Brake system is bled. Brake cable is hooked up. 4 bolts are put on. Seals in place. Silicone's in place. Brake drum is installed. Okay, so everything's put back together. Just put the tire back on. Or the tire wheel. That's supposed to be the easiest part of the job. There, and you can see my rim is a lot cleaner. I cleaned it with the brake clean. And it doesn't stink anymore. It's kind of nice. And that's how you change a rear seal on a Toyota. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it was informative. And yeah, I'll post some more stuff when I can think of what to post. The next one will be how to keep my dogs from pissing all over the basement with an electric fence. That's coming up next.